All right. Haha. Hello. Hello out there. Hi, everybody. Aaron from Solace here. I can actually hear myself on an echo, so I must have this open on another tab. Good morning. It is Tuesday, January 28th, 2025. I am coming at you live from Vancouver, Canada. And today, we're going to be talking about how integrating event APIs with unified API management. I assume a lot of the people that are listening to me today out there have used RESTful APIs, post and get, patch and delete. Maybe you've used API management tooling software to help kind of manage, catalog, do code generation for all those RESTful APIs. Well, as we've moved into the event-driven world with async API as a standard, using tools like the Solace's event portal, developers are like, we would like to have one-stop shop for both of our, types of APIs, traditional RESTful APIs, and our event-driven APIs. And so today I'm going to be joined by my very good colleague, Sven, and we're going to talk about this, and he's going to showcase a lot of the work that he's been doing with regards to this. So Sven, I'm going to bring you on here. Hello.
Hi there. Good morning or afternoon for me.
Good
morning. I know it's an early start for you, so I appreciate you doing that.
Where are you joining us from, Sven?
I am based just outside of London in the UK.
Okay, so it's kind of mid-afternoon, I guess, there for you, right? 2? Is it 2?
Yeah.
2.
2 o'clock-ish, yeah.
It's 6 a.m. here in Vancouver, everybody. So I was supposed to be in Singapore this week, and I'm heading there later on. So it was going to be evening time for me, but yeah, it's a little early. But anyway, Sven, please, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and say hello?
Hi there. So thanks for having me today. My name is Sven. I work in the office of the CTO. I'm roughly in the same group where Aaron works. And I look mostly after our initiatives around event APIs and bringing event APIs and REST APIs and other types of APIs together. So I'm doing all kinds of stuff, but my background is like I've been in middleware for ages, from like early days of EAI to like emergence of SOA, ESBs, data integration, API management, event brokers, EDA. So I've been around the block a good bit, and I've also worked briefly with an API management vendor, so that's where my interest comes in, or comes from, regarding API management, right? And how can we so the question I ask myself is like, how can we kind of do the same thing that happened with REST APIs for EDA, right? Because that's like when we if you look at it, like SOAP APIs, SOAP APIs, so web services, they weren't called APIs, but web services are kind of the precursor of APIs, but they never took off. So there's certain things that happened that made RESTful APIs
that's right, so
successful, right? Yeah. And that's I think where we need to learn our lessons from, and that's where we started out with, when we thought about how can we build API management capabilities into Event Portal, as you just mentioned.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly it. Like RESTful APIs do so well and are so successful because of a lot of the tooling that exists around that, the cataloging, the standardization, the documentation capabilities, searching, code generation, right? The open API, Swagger, and being able to kind of all the stuff that exists for that ecosystem. That's what we would like to do for event APIs, and people who have seen this broadcast before know about the event portal. But if they already have some management capabilities, having to use yet another product seems a bit effort. So that's, I think, why we're talking about this unified management capability, right? If we can do everything in one, then that'd be better. So
or at least you have a solution. So there are, like, if you look at this, events are they're not the same as RESTful services, right? So there's a lot of difference in terms of like how you interact. It's event driven rather than request response. There's no kind of conventions like the verbs you have in RESTful API, so everyone understands the REST API when they look at it, right? So this is like there's certain similarities, but there's also differences. So what we'll see is like there's a need to have like separate event governance and lifecycle management, because it's different, but there's also need to bring everything together under one umbrella, right? So
Right.
that's what we're really gonna talk about a little
That's
bit.
what we're talking about today. So,
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody who's joining, who's listening to us live. We are on LinkedIn and on YouTube and broadcasting on the Solace community. If you happen to wander over to solace.community, our kind of developer and Solace user community, we're broadcasting live on there. If you're out there listening to us, if you're watching the replay, thanks for checking us out. But if you're listening to us live, put up in the chat where you're joining us from. Hey, because we'd like to hear where people are coming from. I can see Tamimi is out there. Actually, he's backstage. So Tamimi, thanks for being there. I can see you. I'll hopefully be able to manage, but if you can keep an eye on the chat or anything, that'd be great. Hello, Giri. Hello from Giri. Hi, Giri, on our team from India, from Bangalore, and Mark is here as well. Good morning, good afternoon. How's it going? Flamebald Gaming. Good day from Quebecistan. Quebec. Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning to you. So, hey, if you're out there, say hello. I know that people often join us from all over the world. So, Sven, do we want to share your slides, or do we want to talk a bit more? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do the first slide, because that's kind of like leads into like why the time, like why like I'd like to talk about why the time has come to be more event driven, right, in your API approach. Because like it's really, if you look at this, I stole this from a Reddit post, and I've cleaned out all the fruity English language. That was
right.
This is a rant from an English Reddit user, so it has a lot of fruity language in it. So it's fruity, nice and sanitized.
Not appropriate for corporate webcasts.
Yeah, but if you scan it, like I think the frustration of this user becomes super apparent, right? So they're trying to buy quite a substantial amount of DIY goods, and they can't figure out who's got it. Is it in this store? Is it in that store? Is it in stock at all? Can I order it online? And even the staff doesn't know. So there seems to be something broken here, right? And I think what's broken is there's no real-time information, right? So like when I'm on the web, like on the website or on the app of this particular home improvement chain,
sure,
I don't like the inventory seems to be outdated, and if I click through at the end, I may actually get an error message when they actually reach back into the backend system and find out, like yesterday there were 100 of those, but today there's none, right?
I'm sure we've all had this experience once or twice on some e-commerce. Maybe things are a bit better now, maybe in the modern day, but yeah, that definitely frustrating that what's online and what's in reality is not always lined up. So
yeah, and that's really we know how to fix this. It's getting events into the app, right? So if you kind of push inventory updates around like in real time, then of course you can see like at the click, like the first time you click on a product page, you see there's 5 in it, 5 there. So if I'm quick enough, I will get these 5. But it's like this is what we need to improve it. So you see that a lot of like modern is a bad word, but like a lot of use cases nowadays require real-time information in addition to request response, because with request response, like you can approximate real-time, but it's expensive because you're polling all the time,
right?
And it is also the overhead of the polling, and you still rely on something in the back end to actually make sure that what you're polling is up to date. So how does that happen, right? So there's the time for EDA, integrating EDA and events into a lot of apps and services is here, right?
That's right.
The problem is with EDA, it is hard, right? So it's like it's typically
harder.
like it's hard. Okay, so put it this way: it's not easy.
Sure. Yeah, it's not super simple. Yeah.
It's not super simple.
It's a bit more complicated. Yeah.
There are a few things that you need to know about events as a developer, and you also oftentimes the infrastructure, how event brokers are run, is kind of still like oftentimes like a middleware approach. So it's like a middleware team guiding it, guarding it. You have to send requests in. There's all kinds of different concepts that people come up with, and of course, Event Portal helps with that. However, like how you scale, like if you look at what happened with REST APIs, if you can just expose them and document them, and people can get self-service access to REST APIs, that that's fostered their adoption, right? So because it was like you didn't have to talk to anyone. You kind of put in your credit card, or maybe even you get a lot of APIs for free. You get going. You don't have to talk to anyone. And we know all know how developers don't really like to talk to people apart from on the office hours today and not at 6 a.m.
That's right.
Yeah. So that's really like the barriers we see, right?
Yep. I 100%, I want to go to a website and maybe they're like, they have some data that I want, like, and then I sign up for a token and I get my token and then I browse their catalog and I find the data that it looks interesting. And then I do a little, I want it to be self-serve. That's kind of, that's like table stakes, right? So let me, while we're pausing just one quick, let me just throw out a few hellos out there to people saying hi. Hello, Ranjit from Sweden. How's it going? Mark is in Orlando. Yes, Mark is in Orlando. Phil from Angleterre. Good morning. Hello. Welcome to the stream. And Carlos from Switzerland. Hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for checking us out. Hope you find today's topic interesting. So hello, thanks for joining. All right, let's continue. Maybe we'll get a few more people saying hello. So,
okay.
Self-serve. So
So so a couple of things. Like one thing is like, so I use this like the retail example. Because it kind of talks to everyone, because everyone gets frustrated about this. But like we see this kind of happening in other spaces as well, like in IoT. Like if I'm kind of monitoring cargo on behalf of a cargo owner, like in a shipping container somewhere, I want to know that the shipping container is heating up if there's yogurt in it, right? And I don't want to know it like 2 hours or 3 hours later, right? Or in aviation, like where we see like airports and air traffic control.
That's very real time
events, right? And that should be real time. Like otherwise, you miss your flight if the gate change event doesn't appear somewhere.
Even things like baggage, like I now get SMS or notifications, like my bag's on the plane now, my bag's off the plane. I mean, that's nice, kind of real time push of data. So
and you don't want to get that notification at the end of your holidays, right? You want it when you're on travel, right? So that's kind of like, so there's other examples there. So
real time.
How it started out for us was like we saw this actually, like the works on this started when Event Portal was emerging, right? So it's the same time like Async API was emerging, and we looked at that. It's like Async API, Open API, kind of similar. Wouldn't it be good if we could also provide self-service access to APIs, right? So that was one thing we thought about. And the other thing we thought about, like, because we already have a broker with policies, why do we actually need an event API gateway, or is a broker actually what we could use as an event API gateway, right?
A gateway, yeah.
And I can big up this is a Solace office hour, so I can big up our product features there. It's like if you look at like all the security policies we provide, which is what an API gateway provides as well, right? Different authentication mechanisms, fine-grained access control to events, so to topics that you can subscribe to and publish to, right? And then resource allocation policies, layer in the queue. There's lots of things that we can do that are akin to an API proxy, but they're like tailored to the event, kind of like to the event world, right? How we consume and send events, right? So that's really how the thought experiment started, and this is like what led into the developer experience that I'm just going to show you quite soon.
Okay, I just want to make sure you're not sharing slides like on a different screen with a different, like the event portal, because we're still looking at the.
I can actually, funnily enough, there is a slide that I could have switched to, which kind of sums this up. So this is taken from a blog that we've recently published, or not that recently now, where we actually see. So our thought experiment was like, can we treat events just like any other API management system from the view of the user, right? So, but with the trick that we use an event, that we use brokers as event gateways with all the policies they provide. And then the other thing that we've actually learned was like when we said, like, can you want events as APIs? People said yes, but we want them where all our other stuff is. So we need to plug into some sort of API marketplace, or into an API developer portal, or into an API federation platform to make that happen. Nobody wants to go to like 5 different places to find what they're interested in.
Right. Yeah. Well, one-stop shop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So does that set enough context for
I think
me
so.
to show a little bit of what it actually enables? So I'm
what
like,
are we building? What are we building? Let's give the people
So the whole point is like, so the slogan we have is take event APIs where developers are, and you need different capabilities to do that. So you have, like we talked about this briefly, event portal where you manage the event API lifecycle, and it's different to REST APIs, right? It's resources on one end and API and services. On the other hand, you have like topics and schemas and so on, right? So it's different, right? You need to have some layer where you can bring all kinds of stuff together. And this actually is a problem in API management space in general, because lots of customers have like an internal and external API management system. They may use like Azure API management. So we're kind of just plugging actually into something that is already happening in the space anyway, right? So that's where API federation comes in. So there's different names for it and different types of products emerging, but the example we're talking about here, which is for a great partner, Gravity, so they call this API federation, right? Okay. And then you want a developer portal where you bring all of this stuff together.
Cool.
So what I could typically do now is like tell you everything from the beginning, like what does event portal look like, what does API federation look like, what's developer portal like, but I'd like to start from what we really want to accomplish, right? Because like for a developer who wants access to event APIs, all of this stuff is pretty irrelevant. All they want to know is there a place where I can go and find APIs that I need to build my stuff, and can I get access to it, right? And that's what I wanted to show you first. You ready?
I'm kind of hoping that people that are watching this are familiar with Solace Cloud and the event portal that we offer. But if you're not, we have quite a few videos on our YouTube channel showing that off, and I've done them before here on the office hours. But head over to Solace Cloud. Check, just Google Solace Cloud, sign up. It's free to sign up. And if so, some of the things you're seeing Sven do here, maybe if we do get into the event portal, you can try it out. But that's not what we're here for today. It's not event portal specifically, right? It's the unified integrations.
It doesn't work without event portal, right?
Right.
But we're gonna first focus on what this looks like to the developer, right? Because that's really our end goal, is to make their lives easier, right?
That's
so
cool.
What I'm going to show you here is, as I mentioned, like this is based on Gravity's API federation and developer portal and so on, right, on their platform. So I'm logged into developer portal, and I can see there's quite a good few APIs already in the catalog for me here. Right, and like if you're a REST developer, a lot of this will look like familiar, like you're used to these type of APIs. So we've got a pet store API, and there's another one that's called the pet store event API. So let's have a look at that, right? So if you look at a REST API, and I'm just going to toggle over to documentation, then you can see this is like everyone's familiar with that, right? So and I wasn't very creative. It gets better. I can promise there's more tailored examples in this demo, but this one, like, people are familiar with. You are familiar with the representation, with the verbs, with the concept of resources, and all of this good stuff, right? So anyone knows this. There's a feature to subscribe to this API, which is unfortunate, because subscribe for us means something different than request access to a specific resource, right? But it is what it is. That's how they talk about that in the API management space. So I could subscribe to it, select a plan, learn about the auth mechanisms, and register an application to get access, right? So that's like what developers will be.
Subscribe is like join up for this particular REST API, or
it is like request access to this API. I guess there was just not enough space on the button to put request access to this API on it. So, so there we go, right? So this looks all familiar, right? And if we head back twice, then like we also see this event API. So it pops up along every other API, right?
All right.
And what we see is actually something that kind of looks very similar to a REST API from the outline. It lists the servers first, right? So we had a little servers drop down on the left earlier on. Right now, it lists out the servers, but if you drill down, you actually see things that look like resources, because you have topics, you can receive events, you can maybe send events, right? There's topics that look like URLs, right? Or URIs, right? So there are payload descriptions. We have, do we have some? Yes, we do have some parameters in this topic, which may help us to listen to specific updates for a specific pet, right? So there's a lot of concepts. If you look at like protocols that support fine-grained topic namespaces like MQTT, like Solace's SMF, like well, actually HTTP that you could use to exchange events as well, right? It is very much similar, right? From the look and feel, right? So that's the first hurdle for me taking. Is like I'm not looking at something which you often see, for instance, with GraphQL and documentation. It's completely different, and the learning curve for anyone who just wants to have like, I don't know, the last 5 meter readings of their energy meter, right? It's so complicated. The learning curve is so high, so people just go like, meh, right? So that's really important to me. It's like, this is where the async API spec team or the async API initiative has done so much great work to make this like really like a round thing that kind of hides some of the like it accommodates event-driven interactions, and it adapts it as much as possible to what developers are used to.
Things that we already used to. Yeah, exactly. Like REST and real. Mark just put a comment up in here. Pet store example is a classic. I know we have many event portal samples and other things as well. We've done pet stores, so classic. I think Carol is funny. I'm a little tired of seeing the pet store example. Oh, Carol may have seen this before then, eh?
I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure where you could have seen this before.
Well,
so, like, I take Carol's point.
Carol. Yes, it's a
and I'm gonna hop over to something that is a bit more that is a bit less or a bit off the beaten track. So
sure.
So
we're showing the similarities between, you can have the REST and you can have the
So this was my best example, but of course you want to do things like, for instance, this goes back to the use case we talked about. If I want to get all the stock levels and order events relevant for something like this app developer, right? For someone like this app developer, the omni-channel API may help. And again, you have the same type of it's exactly the same type of documentation, right? And here's kind of like an example of how you get kind of out of stock events, for example, from a store, right? So we run out of stock, or you may actually have events that tell you like something happens to an order. Maybe it's this is a Germanization of click to collect, so pick to collect. But the point it is click to collect, it should be there, right? It's like for this click to collect use case, like you ordered your stuff online. When is it ready for pickup? You want to get a notification. So you can get all this information from here. And there's one important point in these. So I hope Carol is happier about the fact we're no longer talking about the pet store example. So this is kind of like also really important for me, because with these fine-grained topics, you give the developer the power to decide what they want to consume. Because like if an application instance is running on my mobile phone, I don't want to get the order status of everyone else. I want my order status, right? If I want to look at my local store's availability, I don't want to subscribe to like all the stores in the UK just to kind of like filter out the 3 stores that I'm interested in on a UI, right? So this kind of like is for me also very similar to how REST APIs work, right? But why I like these fine-grained topics, because the developer is in control. If you think about like if all your date events, essentially like all your order events, all your inventory events kind of would just pop up in one, say, big bucket, say a big file, for example, right? And then you read off that file, you'd have to do the client-side filtering, right? And this is not like a good experience for developers. It's also super inefficient, because obviously that model does not extend to a mobile phone or an in-store application or something like that.
And it's not just efficiencies, it's security, right? Maybe you're only allowed to listen to this customer. You don't have, here's not the full data set and you filter it on your local side. We're gonna do the filtering here by these nice topics and stuff. So
Yeah, so you may actually like see if I'm in a store, say like, of course, a lot of this stuff is also interesting for people in the store, right? So that's a good thing about events as well. Like you can start fanning them out. So one use case is picking up this event, right? Another use case is picking up the event in store, so people know like something is out of stock, so they need to reorder it, or they may need to find a substitute because it's out of stock, and they are like notified beforehand, right? So it allows, like the store, of course, should only get their inventory data, right? So it allows them to do that. And you rightly say you want to have very fine-grained access controls, because you don't want to, like, especially if you start opening this up, like if you think about the IoT use case, I don't want you to get location information about containers that have nothing to do with you. There's no cargo of yours in these containers. So like this is the access control as well. And that's what oftentimes like middleware teams are struggling with, to kind of come up with these fine-grained access controls. And it becomes much more relevant because when you start sharing events externally, right?
Yeah. If you have very kind of coarse-grained topics, like some other types of log-based brokers do, kind of filtering within that data stream becomes much more difficult, right? You almost have to do it kind of client side, so it's not as good. The chat is blowing up a little bit. We got a couple other people jumping in here. Running Roach, one of our longtime friends from Hong Kong. Don't forget the online DVD rental store. Yes, another classic.
So, I'm taking notes here. It's all right. So next one is DVD rental store. I got it.
Pet store, DVD online retailer. Yes, that's great. Couple other chats there, but Carol is saying unification of the URI makes it a lot easier to translate developer experience, especially if they've never done anything with old school JMS. So that is, that's true. Tammy said that's a DVD. He's a young guy, and Carol says thanks, Sven. So your comments are being appreciated out there, Sven. So
all right, cool.
Okay, good. Keep them coming, gentlemen and ladies and people. Ask us some questions. Well, once we get into the demo, maybe you'll have some more questions, but we'll see. So
and as I said, I take notes what to upload next in here. That's so DVD store is like anything other old school. Bring in the comments, and next time we're having here.
Cool again. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I'm not going to start there. Okay, so that's kind of, so like now it's good. Like we as developer, we can look at this and can understand it, and it's not too much. Like it is different. Like it would be it would be stupid to pretend like this is like REST APIs. There's differences here. You need to know about protocols, but you get a lot of.
But it's all integrated together. I mean, that's really nice. That's pretty slick.
And you can see them side by side.
Yep. Go ahead. Can you filter on either one? Like if you're like kind of at the main level, can you say I only want RESTful, or I only want? I mean, I guess that's kind of.
It's not I don't know, like this is not our, like, bear in mind this is not our product, it's Gravity we're showing, and the reason why we're doing that is because as said earlier, we need to bring everything under one umbrella, and we need to get the stuff out where developers are. So like that's why we're kind of like completely piggybacking onto that. So I don't know exactly. I also know that this is constantly evolving as well. Their developer, Gravity's developer port, there's actually a newer version out that I haven't migrated the demo to yet. But so these things are coming, right? And there's other things coming up in the portal to actually create API products that combine event APIs and REST APIs. So you actually know, like for my specific use case, these are the REST APIs that I most probably use, and these are the event APIs I most probably need to use. So it gives me these pointers, right? This is all about helping developers understand like how they can use things and ease of use to get access to it, right?
Now we've been just mentioning Gravity simply because, I mean, they are a partner of Solace, and we do have the demo here running with Gravity. But the event portal does have a full-blown RESTful API that allows it to integrate with kind of any custom portal that companies might have, or other types of use cases for it. So you can use the event portal without actually using the event portal, essentially, right? And build these integrations yourself. But not everybody wants to build these integrations themselves, right? So that's why we're happy to have companies like Gravity here working on integrating this into their existing management platform. So
and to that point, there is actually like a specific part of the Solace REST APIs for Event Portal that kind of make it easier to build these type of API management integration. So that's what Gravity is leveraging under the covers here. And like, because it's part of Event Portal, everyone can do it. It allows for a more simplified interaction with the Event Portal for a specific use case, kind of like an experience API.
Okay.
So I just mentioned that because like anyone who sitting out there and says like, oh, well, I don't have Gravity and I don't want Gravity, but you should want Gravity because their product is cool. But if you don't want to, there's always the option to build this yourself and experiment with it as well. Say if you have a Backstage deployment, for example, if you're using Backstage as a developer port, we have had people building their integration. So that's all possible as well.
Cool. Yeah.
Right. So let me.
We got one more comment from Carol here.
Yeah.
Carol's being quite chatty. The capability is there to turn pull to push, which can be done over API management. Machines we'll be doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I see where this is going.
Okay.
And
iPads.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, there's an interesting side, like but this is the whole point, I've been told. We're getting sidetracked, and that's the whole purpose of Office Hours, correct?
We have random comments and questions come up, and we go sideways. Yep.
Okay,
let's talk about this quickly here.
So this actually, for me, like maybe I'm doing Carol, I hope I'm doing him justice with this. Like this goes to the heart, goes to kind of like protocol mediation use cases, right? So why can I get like even simpler, and we see that with like the Solace broker as well. Like we have HTTP built in as well. So oftentimes it's simpler to kind of like have HTTP as an on-ramp so people can fire and forget their events, but they don't need to, they can just do a post, right?
That's right.
Yep.
They don't have to worry about connection management. They just post, and that's very simple and useful and or easy. Yeah.
And then there's things like webhooks, right? Other like and other like things like server-sent events and WebSockets, they're all kind of like based on web protocols, right? So this protocol mediation, it's built in. Of course, you can use an iPass to do protocol mediation, kind of accept the event, do some transformation, push it into a broker, and maybe even set up a listener and call outbound call REST API. So they're kind of like doing a webhook, right? So you can use an iPass for that, and you could use Solace event broker for that. For me, the added benefit of using Solace for it is because you can mediate from REST to MQTT or AMQP or SMF, and it's pretty much interchangeable. So it gives you much more capabilities than typically, and it's out of the box. You don't need to write anything to do the transformation. It's pretty seamless, right?
No adapters, no plugins. It's all natively kind of speaks this language, these protocols.
Yeah. So there's one thing, maybe I'm just going to go back to the slide deck and show this. There's also in this space, there are two different kind of approaches emerging. So Gravity calls this event native API management. Other vendors are like kind of jumping onto that as well.
Okay.
And then there's the API federation use case. And event native API management is essentially where API gateways start to expose event protocols directly on their proxy. So where it previously only talked HTTP, it now still talks HTTP, but it uses protocols built on top of HTTP, like server-sent events or webhooks, right?
Okay.
So in this case, the API gateway is the API gateway. So that's often for use cases where people start out with REST APIs and they have a lot of external use, whatever external means, but they have like loads of developers using these RESTful APIs, and they want to provide APIs with similar, like with web protocol, with web protocols that are like put it the other way around, with event protocols built on top of HTTP, right? Because they're all HTTP gateways, right? So they talk HTTP really well. And they could put, instead of a RESTful paradigm, they put essentially like long polling on top or server-sent events or something like that.
But not everything is web protocols, though, right? I mean, like we support web sockets and HTTP, but we also support kind of raw binary.
Exactly. And so from my point of view, event native API management has a place, right, where it's kind of like, it's very kind of focused towards the web experiences, right?
Okay.
Whereas the API federation puts the broker on the data path, right? So the broker becomes the event gateway. And this is useful for use cases where as you rightly say, not everyone wants to use that. Like going back to our examples in aviation, people like to use AMQP. In IoT, people like to use MQTT. Our existing customer base, they're using JMS, they're using SMF.
Typically,
right?
in the enterprise, you're not going over web protocols. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but you still have the problem, like how do you scale up your middleware platform and get more developers on board, even if they're all using JMS? Like if you provide self-service access, right? Then you remove the bottleneck of like having to talk to middleware team and all the friction, right? So it's like why only give this experience to kind of what you would call external, even if they're like company internal, but like external users to your organization or you're part of the organization. Why not give it to everyone who wants to use events, or not to everyone, but like to those user groups that kind of can't be bothered, like they're actually where you want to scale, put it this way, like where you want to scale out the usage and you want to standardize as well, because oftentimes in these enterprise environments, you also see the fact like lots of homegrown solutions to provide access and to set up access control lists and so on. And the standardization of that and very tight access control lists that are automatically created based on what you've configured in Event Portal, that takes a lot of burden off the middleware team, right? And streamlines all these processes.
Yep. And like, I think just a couple months ago, I had Daryl on here showing the new features in Event Portal, where it does the automatic deployment using Terraform on your broker to configure all the queues and the ACLs and the subscriptions and stuff. I mean, I have worked in middleware teams, as doing kind of broker management, and you have to raise a change request. And then there's a manual. I have to go run a CLI script or some SEMP. That's all going away, right? It's all going to be automated. It's going to be click, click, click. And it used to have to be our customers doing this manually, and now that's going away. It's going to be it's all built into the broker, which simplifies things a lot. So
and that's exactly the same. Like what Darren's shown, this piggybacks onto the same infrastructure. It's a different route in, because in Event Portal, we would want to have everyone use Event Portal. The reality is, like with so many development teams in large enterprises, you won't get them to do that. So this is another on-ramp to get these guys onboarded onto brokers in a more scalable way, right?
That's right.
And also like
go to where they are. They're already using these tools.
And the other point also is like, you don't want them to, like, even if you could get everyone into your governance platform, do you really want everyone on your governance platform? There's also a point is like, do you want all the teams that, like, there's loads of people like I've worked with which I wouldn't want to have direct access to my governance tools, right?
Okay.
I'm not sure about you, but it's like I've been around the block a few times and I've met people who I'd rather keep at arm's length from my estate, right? And that's really the point where this comes in.
So let's just make. I just want to double check. We covered everything that Carol said here. APIM, pull to push, right? So polling versus publishing and eventing. We're doing this with iPads, right? And he said yes. Oh, okay. So he's agreeing with you. Excellent. Exactly that. We want middle pair to be part of the call.
I must be saying something right.
That's right. So awesome. Thanks for the comments and questions out there, Carol. Cool. Right.
So what we haven't done yet, and which I'd like to do, is to show you, like, it's all fair and nice. I can look at all this documentation, but how can I get access, right? So that's
yes. Let's keep going here. Yep.
I'm gonna go through this, but I won't go all the way. I'm just gonna show you roughly what the experience looks like. So when you select and to subscribe, you get a plan. Or multiple plans presented to you, right? So, and this is when I said, like, these are the kind of policies that we can define on a broker quite easily. Can you subscribe to messages only direct, or can you do guaranteed messaging?
Right.
What's the queue that's been set up for you?
How big is it? Yeah.
How big it is? Is it, how long will we keep the data for you? These type of things.
Yep.
And then I'm essentially just saying, like, here's an application that I want to attach this API to. I could leave a comment, right? This could be an approval step as well in the background on the API management platform.
Okay.
And once we're good, we could validate this request.
So the application is like kind of,
it's kind of like a placeholder, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's like you say, like it's kind of the bucket. So you say like I'm about to build something, so
Right,
I'm saying like I call that my application, and then I'm putting like, so this is my shopping basket, and I put like all of the APIs I need into that shopping basket, event APIs, REST APIs, put them all in my shopping basket, and then
cool.
People will approve that. So I'm going to check out. In this case, it's going to be auto-approved, but that means now I've got all the stuff, all the products available to me, so I can start building, like doing whatever I did, right? So like prepare my barbecue because I got all my burgers and sausages, or more probably, in your case, more probably for better the breakfast, your waffles and your bacon and so on.
Yep.
But so that's what we're really doing, is like there's and it's also important to know, like from our point of view, from a governance point of view, we don't overly care about the life cycle of that application. It's not our problem, it's their problem. We just need to know it's there, right? And this is what we give it access to. We're not reaching into their lifecycle management, right? Right. And we're not reaching into how they do things, like on their end. How do they versioning? Do they actually go from development to pre-prod to prod? Right. We have safeguards around our prod environment, but like we can't, like the whole thing is like, if we open this up, we're no longer in control. So the application is a placeholder, but we're not going to version this or anything. Like it's the developers, it's their problem, not our problem.
Right.
It's our problem to keep the API specifications stable, so people like don't lose access or their applications break, right? So it's contract based. So we don't care what you do behind it, but these are the things you can do. And we'll make sure that we let you keep doing the things that you're doing for as long as possible.
Got it. Yep.
Make sense?
Yep.
So now I've got an application. Let me just see if I've got just gonna get an example up. So we've seen in the APIs, in the async API spec, I can find out about topics. I can find out about the servers I can connect to, which protocols I can use. Now the application also provides me
Halo.
Yeah, exactly. So the application now provides me with the means to connect to that broker. So I'm getting credentials here that allow me to generate an OAuth access token, and that I can present to a broker to get access to it, right? So now I've got all the ingredients, right, as a developer to create my app, or simply try this quickly in something like Postman, because Postman, which is quite cool, has the ability to set up MQTT connections. So you can actually use as a REST developer using REST APIs and building REST APIs. You can use the same tool set to interact with.
So Postman does eventing, does PubSub now. That's good to know.
And that's what we're gonna have a look at next, right? So this goes back to the kind of like get to where developers are, right? So we've got all the information we need, and we could just go into Postman and punch this stuff in, which I'm not gonna painstakingly copy everything over, but I've got it all set up in Postman.
Because otherwise, like I would have used something like MQTT Lens as a Chrome plugin, or MQTT X as another GUI tool, or the Solace Try Me, just to like do a quick little test. But that's good to know. All right, cool.
So
MQTT demo event.
So nice. We have so you can see we've got two. You can't mix request types within a collection. So you have to have a specific collection for all your event broker connections, right?
Yeah.
But that's I think, like for me, that's a limitation I can live with, right? So first thing is, and this is like typically like everyone knows this stuff up here. So you can get an OAuth token, and then you can, and I promise we get back to the pet store API. So most probably people want to cover their eyes now.
That's right.
So we can get an access token. And just to explain that, in Postman, I'm going to squash this access token into a variable so I can reuse it, right? So I'm not have to copy this stuff around. So you see that. But I'm getting an access token. I can get hold of that.
Sure.
I can get a pet. So a REST API. Cool, all works. That's something we're familiar with. We also have these MQTT things. These MQTT kind of requests. They're more like connections. In Postman. Right. So we've copied over. I've copied over a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the portal, like just as a developer would, to just quickly try this out. So the URL.
Solace Cloud.
I'm not authorization. I'm presenting my token. So remember, the token comes from a variable. So this is just the way we need to present it to the MQTT when we establish an MQTT connection, right? And actually, I'm already connected. So let's try this again. If I connect, I'm connected. I'm subscribed to some event, some topics here. Unfortunately, the event feed isn't running. So I can show you what this looks like in a second in a different example. But you can also see, just if you don't believe me, you can add
and does it just display it kind of similar, like you, as the payloads come in, the messages come in, you can just look at the payload?
I'll show you in a second. Exactly. So just kind of like to prove that this really works. So obviously, if I'm messing around with the token, I've just appended a set. It doesn't work. So this is real life. We talked about this. Like, do I want to do this on slides? We actually did most of the demo live. But
live, cool. Folks, live demos.
And most of it works, apart from the fact that it's like, no, Aaron just zoomed in directly onto the sore point, the weak point in my demo, which is I can't get the event. So for that, I have this guy here. And the next thing you're going to ask me is like, can you zoom in because people can't read it, right? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit.
Very nice. I can't.
And you can see.
Now I can read it. Yep, that's great.
Right. So we have our subscription set up for specific store IDs. Remember, we only want to get, so I can play around with that. We only want to get data for the stores that we're currently interested in, where like in the vicinity of the user or something like that, right?
Or wildcard for all stores, or
and you can see we have this is MQTT, of course. So you like the last, we're going to get stock levels for all the products. Maybe you also want to, while someone is looking at the product, you obviously only want to get the live feed for that product, right? So you could do more fine-grained filtering. Here we're just filtering on different store IDs, so you can see I'm subscribed to 30 and 20, and then I get my messages coming in. It's rendering it as JSON, like similar to what we would see if we get our response in a REST request in Postman. Right. And so this took us quite a long time to talk through it, but like in reality, this can be like this can be a really quick process for developers, right? So it's kind of like it's like the time we now talked about this, most probably is enough time for people to figure out, oh, here's an event API, here's get access to it and start messing around with it. I think you could do that in roughly the same amount of time.
So as developers, I mean, so this should, I mean, ideally what we have, what you have done working with Gravity and other API, vendors that are out there. I mean, I can see a future maybe 5 years from now where this is like just standard across the board everywhere. This is not like a brand new kind of cool thing to do. Like developers everywhere will just kind of log into their portal to look at what data is there. Here's the request reply, here's the events, and they'll just be able to like subscribe to this, just grab these events wherever they are and request access to them. Maybe not even 5 years, maybe 1 year, hopefully within a year, right?
This
is what we're going for. So it's very, very cool stuff.
I can tell, like it is definitely like, so we've been working on this for a while, right? And it's definitely the case like that. There's a lot of different solutions kind of evolving in that space, right? And Gravity are really strong and good at this, and they were really early to spot this, and that we've worked with them for quite a while already, right? And I think the space is changing, and this is going to be like, I'm not sure, I won't stand up and say like it's in 1 year or 5 years or whatever. So I'm very non-committal that way, right? So it's kind of like, this is like our typical roadmap presentation. It's kind of like, let's see. But I think it's clearly like it's time for this, and we can make it simple enough for everyone to make use of events, right?
Yep. I've been, I don't know, I guess I've been at Solace too long to really have had like the modern developer world, I guess, has kind of come along since I've been at Solace. I've been here for so long that I've kind of missed out on doing a lot of the stuff that, like API portals and doing everything in REST. I was always kind of using SOAP and, I used some Corba in my last job. I was doing, we had a database that was all kind of Corba interactions. I kind of haven't, a lot of this stuff is not that, I've never personally used it in true like enterprise developer kind of fashion. But I think it is very exciting that, the Solace world of, publish subscribe that used to just be kind of Excel spreadsheets for documentation and Word docs, and that was it. Now we have the event portal, and now we're integrating it into real existing tools and management that's out there. So I'm pretty excited, even though I'm not using it, but I'm helping promote it, I guess. So hey out there. So hey, questions. I mean, thank you for the questions that we had. If you got another couple ones for Sven. We got a couple minutes here left before the top of the hour. But thanks for listening. I guess Carol's back. That's not lost. You can still catch up. Excellent. Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Can I just piggyback onto that as well?
Sure,
Because
sure.
I told you about this. Like I started out. So I worked with ESBs and SOA and web services, and for quite a while. And then I changed role, and I worked in kind of like bespoke software development, right, for customers. And I interacted with a different class of developers. So for me, this was all kind of like my life, like everything around me was SOAP based, and web services and XML. And then I started interacting with these developers, and it changed my view of the world, right? So it's kind of like, because like you get engrossed into like where you are, right, and what you do, and everything seems to be easy. Like like an athlete will tell you like it's actually not so hard to ski really fast, but it isn't easy, right? So that really changed my mind to see like developers, and I forced developers to build SOAP services because I thought it was a good idea, and it turned out to be a terrible idea because like the developers who had to build it didn't like to do that, and developers who had to use it didn't have the means. Like a REST API was so much simpler for them to interact
REST
with.
Is so easy. It's so easy.
And that's
really
nice so that's really nice and dangerous about it, because like it is like, as we talked about, for many things it's not the right solution, but it's like it's the change in like changing that perspective is was quite enlightening when I kind of moved over to the other side, and I was on the receiving end of having to interact with something like as a minor concern, right? Because we actually like think like for like event driven, for many people it's like part of what they're doing, but it's not all of what they're doing, right? So like for us it's everything, right? So that changing that perspective is quite interesting.
That's right. It's REST is what did you say the other day? Like REST APIs like burgers
and fries. It's convenience food. When you're bummed out at the end of the day, you want to have dinner quickly. Do you go for the frozen fries and the pre-packaged burger, or do you cook a vegetarian meal with all the nutritions that you actually need? Right?
That's right. Yes.
And so we need to.
Sometimes the healthier, better choice is the harder one. That's more of a not as good, but
and this, what we're doing here, is built to get like pre-packaged veggie burgers with all the good things you need alongside your burger and fries.
Yeah. Quick comment here from Hugo. REST is so easy, yes, and we used to think that it is efficient. Not efficient. No, it's verbose on the wire. It's in terms of real-time eventing, it's good for request reply. It's good for what it is good at. But then people try to kind of just use it in other places where it's not maybe so good at. So, I don't know. Sven, you have a comment on that, or
but
we just talked about
what always sticks with me is like we have this example from the automotive sector where they used REST for their first, like for connected cars use cases, and they went over to MQTT, and the amount of like energy there's so many savings, right? So it all goes faster. They save like network traffic, go like 50 or more percent of the network traffic. Like this is an enormous cost in monetary terms, but also in environmental terms, because like the whole like from the car to your app on your phone via all the different hops, everything's kind of burning electricity, right? Or using electricity.
And it's one way only, like, I mean, it can only go one direction. So like,
and it's so it is really like, it's not only like it's technically the better solution, because like oftentimes, a technically better solution is not like, why would I, right? But it is this business, like this is cost and environmental impact that's attached to it, and that was quite an eye opener when I saw the figures that were shared with us by comparing HTTP versus MQTT.
Yeah,
It's a small
MQTT,
thing, like
much more efficient,
yeah.
Designed to be protocol, like bandwidth constrained and blah, blah, blah. Mark's just saying here, Sven over here claiming developers don't like to use SOAP. SOAP, sure. And another, and Ram saying it's efficient if you're comparing it with XML and SOAP. XML is also not the most efficient of encodings, isn't it? Yeah. At least JSON is a little bit tighter. Good old XML. Yeah, I like the 90s. Awesome. So Sven, we're getting up near the top of the hour. Do you have like a wrap-up slide or anything to show people here, or are we just happy to kind of, let me get rid of this banner here, scrolling along. Any kind of closing remarks?
Yeah, if I can find my mouse pointer again. Hang on a second.
Sure. Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, let me just.
While you're doing that, let me just I'll do a little talk here. So next month, my office hours, I'm going to be. Oh, your audio's. Is that me? Oh, I can't hear Sven anymore. I can't hear you. Oh, you're back. I think I can.
Do you want to go ahead?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Sorry. Sorry. Go ahead.
Can you still hear me okay or not so much?
Yep. You're fine.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't say anything. Maybe that was the reason. Okay.
Delayed.
Yeah, so sorry. Let me just kind of wrap it up because we kind of scratched the surface and it took us quite a while. So just as a reminder, actually, like what I've shown you is like the bit on the right, the developer portal. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You need all these other capabilities as well. And as you said, we can learn a lot about event portal in other office hours. You need event portal for the event API lifecycle management. You need some sort of API governance platform, API federation to bring it all together. And so we kind of like looked at the tip of the iceberg. There's an iceberg beneath. Right?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for the presentation there, Sven, and for joining us. Running Roach GSP and Servlets for Life. Just a couple more little comments there at the end. Ram says great session. Thank you very much, Sven. Thank you so much for joining and presenting all of this and doing all the hard work. I just had to sit here and kind of watch you do all.
Leave it to you now, Aaron, and to see if you can get if the message gets through to you.
We're having some technical difficulties here with I got a delay going on from Sven's side. So anyway, I will just say thanks everybody for joining, and I'll see you next week. Next month, I'm going to be doing the schema registry, talking about that. So if you haven't heard that Solace is building a schema registry, we are. Come check it out, and yeah, we'll see you next month. Thanks, Sven. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. All right. Bye, everybody.